So good afternoon, everyone. So I will just continue the report of Mr. Davis. So conducting on the job training in the previous section, we discussed how employees can be trained in classroom settings and through distance learning. So in this section, we will discuss how employees learn through on-the-job training or OJT, an important topic given that some researchers estimate that over 60% of employee training is OJT, though there is some disagreement about what constitutes OJT. But a good definition is that OJT is informal training by experienced peers and supervisors that occurs on the job and during job tasks. So OJT works best for teaching skills that require supervisions to learn, are best learned through repetition and benefit from role modeling. So learning by modeling others, also called social learning. Modeling is a vitally important method of learning for training in organizations. As the name implies, employees learn by watching how other employees perform or model a behavior. So yung characteristic of the model, of course, we do not model uh, everyone else's behavior. Instead, we tend to model behavior of people who are similar to us, who are successful and who have status. So, for example, if we were deciding what new clothes to purchase, who would we model? If male, would we pick Barbara Walters or Ted Kennedy? Syempre hindi. Instead, we would look for someone who was more similar to us in both gender and age. We tend to look for a model who is similar to us for modeling be effective. So the appropriate role models for employees should be similar to them in significant way. So next natin is yung characteristic of the observer. So for an employee must be able to retain the information that is being modeled. So have you ever watched a person's dance? So, and then later try the dance yourself. For most of us, it is difficult to do if there are many steps to remember. But for some of us, it is difficult to do if there are only two steps to remember. So even though we might have been paying close attention, there were too many behaviors to recall or retain. That is why training techniques that use modeling concentrate on only a few behaviors at a time. So last is the employee must have the ability or skill to reproduce the behavior that is seen. For example, the employee must have the example. Suppose a new employee observes a veteran employee's winding coil. If the new employee does not have the proper dexterity, technique alone will not enable the employee to be as successful as the veteran. So it is important to limit the scope of the behaviors being modeled so that they are at a skill level that can reproduce by observing employee. So yung next natin is learning through job rotation. So another excellent on the job training method is job rotation. So in which an employee performs several different jobs within an organization. So job rotation is especially popular for managerial training because it allows a manager trainee to experience and understand most, if not all, of the job within the organization that his subordinates will perform. So the main advantage of uh, job rotation is that it allows for both lateral transfers within an organization and greater flexibility and replacing absent workers. For example, if two bank tellers are ill, employee who normally approves loans is able to temporarily take over the teller's task. So, an increased use of work theme is making job rotation or cross-training much more common. So job rotation is well-planned practice to reduce the boredom of doing same type of job every day and explore the hidden potential of an employee. So example neto, yung sa payroll officer, papunta sa safety officer, welfare officer, HR analyst, personal relationship officer, and then balik ulit sa payroll officer. So the process serves the purpose of both the management and employees It helps management in discovering the talent of employees and determining what he or she is best at. So an interesting innovation is taking job rotation training outside the organizations and encouraging employees to volunteer for worthwhile charities and non-profit organizations. So example ng volunteering is yung sa daycare center. Employees help clean a local beach. Employers report that volunteerism increase morale while also increasing employee communication, time management, and planning skills. Added benefits include increased respect for diversity, self-esteem, and social obligation. So yung next natin is yung learning through apprentice training. So sa apprentice training is used by more than 50,000 people annually and is typically found in crafts and trades such as carpentry and plumbing. So with apprentice training, an individual usually takes 144 hours of formal class work each year and works with an expert for several usually 4 years. So apprenticeship are usually formal agreements between labor and management and are regulated by the U.S. Department of Labor's Bureau of Apprenticeship and Training, as well as by state agencies. Apprenticeship can also be less formal. So, for example, an apprentice working with a plumber will initially help the plumber by carrying supplies, picking up parts from suppliers, and holding tools. But with time, the apprentice is taught the necessary knowledge and skills for plumbing. When the apprenticeship is complete, the apprentice can start his own business. So next natin is learning through coaching and mentoring. So coaching is another popular method of training new employee and typically takes one of two forms. So first is experienced employees working with new employees and professional coaches who work with all employees. So experienced employees as coaches in this form of coaching, a new employee is assigned to an experienced employee who is told to show the kid the ropes. So coaching can be highly effective, allowing the new employee the chance to learn from a job expert. So after all, who knows a job better than a person who has mastered it for several years? And coaching provides just-in-time training, flexible scheduling, customized training, and a smaller financial commitment than many other types of training. So coaching, however, has its own problems. Not all employees are good coaching. Coaching can lower the coach work productivity. Pass-through programs and corporate coaches can alleviate problems. So sa professional coaches, to overcome the problems mentioned here, many organizations are using corporate coaches. Corporate coaches are similar to consultants, yet rather than working with the organization as a whole, they are hired to coach a particular employee, usually a manager. And the job of a corporate coach goes beyond traditional training as they also help employees identify strengths and weaknesses, set goals, and solve problems. So, for example, a managerial may having a problem with an employee who is short with customers. As a result, the manager goes to the coach for help. So the coach might begin by listening to some of the employees' calls and then work with the manager on how to provide feedback to the employee. So the coach might listen as the manager talks to the employee and provide additional feedback to the manager. So mentoring is a form of coaching that has recently received much attention. So a mentor is a veteran in the organization who takes a special interest in a new employee and helps him not only to adjust to the job but also to advance in organization. So typically mentors are older and at least one level or position above the employee being mentored. So performance appraisal. So as discussed in chapter 7, one of the major uses for employees performance evaluation is training. So one excellent method on the job training is to have a supervisor meet with an employee to discuss his strengths and weaknesses on the job. So once the weaknesses have been identified, so the supervisor and employee can determine what training methods would best help the employee to improve his job knowledge or skill. So next natin is ensuring transfer of training, research, and learning has indicated that the more similar the training situation is to the actual job situation. So the more effective training will be, in other words, the transfer of training will be greater. For example, if a restaurant is training its employees to wait on tables, the training will be more effective if the employee can practice in environment that is similar to encountered when they actually work. This realism might even include customers complaining and changing their orders. So another way to increase positive transfer of training is by having the trainee practice the desired behavior as much as possible. So such practice is especially important for tasks that will not be performed on a daily basis after training has been completed. So for information, learn in training to transfer to behavior on the job. Employee must be given the opportunity and encouraged to apply what they have learned. Employees are more likely to be given opportunities to perform what they learn if their supervisor perceives them to be competent and the organization climate is supportive. So transfer of training also can be increased by teaching concepts, basic principles, and the big picture rather than just specific fact or techniques. So evaluation of training results. As discussed in chapter 1, one important characteristic of industrial psychology is its reliance on research. Evaluating training result is good example of this reliance because training programs can be costly in both time and money. It is essential that they be evaluated to determine if they can be improved, should continue to be offered, and whether it is significant increases performance or affect positive changes in behavior. So evaluation criteria, there are 6 levels at which training effectiveness can be measured. So content validity, employee reaction, employee learning, application of training, business impact, and return on investment. So yung content validity at times, the only way the training can be evaluated is by comparing training content with the knowledge, skills, and ability required to perform a job. In other words, the content validity of the training can be examined. So yung employee reaction naman, the most commonly used method to evaluate training is measuring employees' reaction to the training. So employee reaction are important because employees will not have confidence in that training and will not be motivated to use if they do not like the training processes. So, however, even though positive employee reaction are necessary for training to be successful, positive employee reaction do not mean that training will lead to changes in knowledge or performance. So, next naman natin is yung employee learning. Instead of using employee reaction as the criterion in evaluating training, performance, actual employee learning can usually be measured. So, next natin is application of training. Another criterion for evaluating the effectiveness of training is the degree of application of training or the extent to which employee actually can use the learned material. Learning and memorizing new material is one thing, and applying it is another. For example, if employees learn how to deal with angry customer, their ability to apply this material can be measured by observing how they treat an angry customer while they are actually working. So application of training is often measured through supervisor ratings or through the use of the secret shoppers discussed in chapter 7. So business impact, the fifth criterion that can be used to evaluate a training program's effectiveness is business impact. Business impact is determined by evaluating whether the goals for training were met. So the sixth criterion for evaluating success of training program is return on investment. That is after accounting for the cost of the training, did organization actually save money? So that's all. Thank you for listening.